we'll start with Mike Ferner. He just seems very far away because he was just in New York City fasting with everybody. And Mike, do you want to tell the story of Veterans and Allies Fast for Peace in Gaza? And welcome everybody.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation, and it's Veterans and Allies Fast for Gaza. So that's the official name of it, as it says right here on that shirt. So, uh, but I wanted to get back to something you said in the intro, Susan, about Iran and what you read from a journalist or whoever it was that you were quoting about telling a city of 15 million people to evacuate. To say that, particularly to say that when there has been no declaration of war, is nothing short of terrorism. You know, we talk about terrorists all the time, and we think that we are the best arbiters of who is a terrorist and who isn't. But for a government with the ability to cause harm and death to a city of 15 million people that has a proven history of doing that at random times, to then say to 15 million people to evacuate is nothing short of terrorism. But unfortunately, we've learned that the government that we don't actually run in our country is up to that sort of thing all the time. So, getting back to the Veterans and Allies Fast for Gaza, that name came through some discussion in a committee that people came forward from VFP and from Friends of Sabeel, and I'm not sure where else. When we first got going, we had three planning meetings in about less than 2 weeks, about 12 days. And so we understood that this was something that we couldn't put off until we could perfect it. And of course, we had some shortcomings that were obvious once we got going, but people involved in the planning and others who started to respond to it, it was clear that they wanted to go ahead with this. And we got what we thought was a respectable minimum number of people to be in New York. Joy Metzler came in from Florida. Uh, Ken Ash came from North Carolina. Russ Brown came from Buffalo, and two of us came from Toledo. So those are VFP members. And then Kathy Kelly came in from the Chicago area, and Ray, oh boy, I'm not drawing a blank on the last name, but anyway, who's not a member of VFP, but came in early on and was fasting with us and also helping with some of the support. So that's the principles that have been involved in New York. But I just checked the website that Friends of Sabeel North America has put up that we've been using all along, and the current total is 777 people, mostly in the U.S., of course, but with small groups of people in Australia, South Africa, Ireland, Germany, Italy, and Canada. So it's something that even without us trying to push it into an international project has just happened that way. And I'd like to say for those of you who maybe haven't been through a fast with a group of people, and that makes a lot of difference whether you're doing that or on your own. This has been just a wonderful experience for me, and I hope for the other fasters. We've developed a sense of community, and you hear that phrase all the time, but we really have. And the Kathy Kelly asked me about 2 weeks into it. She said, "Is anybody snapping at anybody?" And I said, "No, not at all." She said, "Well, that's kind of unusual during a fast." And but that's the case. I mean, we're learning from each other and finding out about each other's backgrounds and skills. And just from that angle alone, it has been extremely rewarding. And then we see the people that walk past us when we're at the UN or, just anywhere that where we talk about this, when we're in shops and so forth in New York. And the uh, scores, if not hundreds, of people who responded when I wrote an email 2 weeks ago saying, where are you at and what kind of fast are you doing? And Tarek and Ellen and I are working on a article for Peace and Planet News that's going to summarize or excerpt as many of those responses as possible because they really show the spirit and the compassion and empathy of the people who are involved in this. But the other thing it shows, and this was rather unexpected to me, is this outpouring of very explicitly stated gratitude that we hear sometimes from the people at the UN as they're walking by occasionally, and that we're hearing from the people who are involved in this fast around the country. And that is, I was so beside myself with anger and grief about what's going on in Gaza. And I felt what I was doing was just not up to what was needed. And what else can I do? And when people start asking that question and following what the answers are that they come up with, we really see an upsurge in the numbers of people and in the kinds of activity that a movement like ours can do. And so we have been the recipient of many people's thanks and good wishes just because we kicked this off and it gave them something to participate in that they felt was significant and something more than what they were doing. So, those things were unexpected, but they've come out of this. And I don't want to go into a whole lot of particulars about the fast. Joy's been there every day, just about. She came in just a couple of days after it started, and she's also she was involved in the planning prior to the fast starting, and she's also probably the most active noodler and strategist as far as what sorts of things can we do during the fast and particularly at the end of it so we go out with a bang and not a whimper. Um, I don't want to go on too much about the other fast information and Joy can handle that. But Susan, do you want to? I don't know how you do this. Do people want to ask any questions briefly before Joy comes on, or do you want to wait, or what?
I thought we would wait until after Joy speaks and then we'll ask questions of both of you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, Joy, um, it's wonderful to meet Joy after seeing all of numerous emails. And Mike Ferner, thank you for your outreach into the young veterans, young active duty members. It's been extraordinary. And certainly Veterans for Peace thanks you. And I think the world will when we're completing the fast and moving on to other peace and justice activities. Joy, as I mentioned earlier, is just received, and Joy, you can tell your story, just received her conscientious objector status from the Air Force, and congratulations on that. And welcome again to New York City Veterans for Peace.
Yeah. So I graduated from the Air Force Academy in 2023 and fast brain is kicking in. Yeah, I graduated from the Air Force Academy in 2023 and I was still pretty you know, all about being in the military and everything like that. But what really changed my perspective was um seeing October 7th happen, which happened while I was in a civilian graduate school. I went to Georgia Tech right out of the academy. And what happened was I was still very much in the boat of countries have a right to retaliate. But then as the months dragged on, retaliation looked more and more like the destruction of civilian infrastructure and the indiscriminate killing of civilians. And these are all things that I knew were war crimes from my time at the academy. And being naive as I was like, well, if I can see it as a second lieutenant, then our country is definitely going to step in and stop this. And of course, that didn't happen. In fact, more money went over to continue funding war crimes. And that was really the start um, of the cracks in my ideology, which I grew up post 9/11, so I grew up with all the classic, like, terrorism is the biggest threat to democracy. Um, they hate us because of our freedom. I'm not even kidding. That's what I grew up thinking. And this really changed my perspective on all of that, why terrorism exists, what the US has been doing. And then when you start like doing all of the research in like the publicly available research of everything the US has done, you start thinking, well, this kind of sucks. And so does being in the military. So I submitted my application in the beginning of August. And I remember because it was my birthday weekend. So I submitted my application right before going and hanging out with my husband for my birthday. So that was an emotionally charged weekend. Um, but yeah, I did a few op-eds and a few articles with a couple of my friends, Larry and Juan, who have also been out there in regards to Gaza. And that application finally went through April 25th. They did try getting me on conduct unbecoming and contempt of an official on my way out, but even if they had tried pursuing something, they probably wouldn't have gotten it to stick because I worked with a lawyer to make sure that everything I put out was above board, so to speak, as far as laws and stuff go. So that was also an eventful last week in the military, but I had already been thinking about doing a fast because I was, you know, the genocide has only gotten worse since I made the decision to get out and speak publicly. And so I was thinking about things that I could do. Um, and then the email rolled in probably a couple weeks later about this fast. And I was like, yeah, it's not like I'm doing anything better with my time. So one thing led to another, and now I'm here. Um, and I think, yeah, I mentioned it earlier. I'd been going pretty well on the 250 calories until today. And my legs were threatening to give out on my way to the UN, and I hadn't done anything else. So, in preparation for the fun event on the 30th, I have decided to supplement a little bit, um, probably not too much. And next week, I'm hoping to be back to 250. Um, but for the 30th, we are planning a big event. I won't go too far into the details over Zoom, but basically we're going to be disrupting, um, being disruptive and productive. So we're going to have a disruptive part of the action. But the other thing is we need props to really drive home this humanitarian aid thing. So people who don't necessarily want to get arrested, that's completely fine. We still need you on the sidelines. And by the way, this is an invitation to come out. It's happening on Monday at 9:30 a.m., which it's a little early, but we're doing that hopefully so that the asphalt isn't too hot. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to ask people to bring cans of food and other non-perishables. And once we're done using those as props in our action, we are going to donate those to mutual aid networks in New York City. So there's a lot of different moving parts to this action. But I think if we can get it pulled off and particularly get the bodies that we need out there, and again, bodies just means people out there in support. If we can get the bodies out there, I think this could be a very effective end to our fast. So yeah.
Thank you, Joy. Again, folks, Joy, do you want people to email you, or do we want people to let Bob Kyleback know? And if you're interested in working on the 30th at 9:30 in the morning, gathering at the United States Mission to the United Nations, it's at 45th Street and First Avenue. Please, Bob, is that okay? We'll have folks email you and let you know, and just to pull the information together. No details yet, but we need all the support. Right, Joy and Mike?
Yep. And I wanted to mention Joy was a little took a little while to get warmed up. And again, for those of you who haven't fasted, we call it jokingly fast brain, but it takes a toll on everything, mentally, physically, emotionally. So you just find yourself unable to string sentences together as you would usually. Walking, everything slows down. And as we like to point out, and I'm not having that problem right now because I went off the fast a week ago and I've been eating normally because of health problems. But at any rate, we always want to make sure that we follow a description of our health or our fasting or whatever by saying that the people in Gaza can't quit if they're feeling really, really bad or have really got some bad health problems because of not eating. That's not an option for them. They don't have a safe place to go home to. They've got drones buzzing overhead, keeping their whole systems on high alert day and night, and on, all the conditions that we know that are existing there. So we're doing what we're doing. Well, the fasters that are still at it are doing this to obviously try to bring attention to the issue. And we're experiencing by doing that just a small measure of what it's like for people in Gaza.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, it's brought extraordinary amount of attention, as you said, across the United States and in a number of different countries. And it's helped to bring attention to what's going on in Gaza, and we'll continue to do that. So I guess we'll start with questions. Nick, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate you all who are doing the fast. I've done some of that myself with people up here in Northampton, but not to the extreme that you all are doing it in terms of limits of calories. But a benefit of it that I found is that somewhat takes me out of this culture that is so distracting and causes me to focus my mind on things that we can do here to try to counteract what's the genocide. So I really appreciate it. I got an email this afternoon saying that Greg McIver, who was a UN human rights official, is recommending now the passage of UN Resolution 377A, which would cause UN peacekeepers to be introduced into Gaza. And in terms of what you're going to be requesting or recommending or demanding on September 30th, I wondered if you might want to consider calling for UN peacekeepers to be introduced into Gaza. Susan Smith, who's part of a coalition to try to work on solutions at the UN for Gaza, has written quite a good article for Common Dreams that came out yesterday, I think, and Counterpunch. And it talks about peacekeepers. So anyway, I wanted to make that suggestion, and within the context of really appreciating what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Nick. I think we'll hold that just later in the meeting. Joy or Mike, did you want to say anything in response to Nick? Okay, Sherry, and welcome all these miles away. Good to see you again.
Well, on behalf of the Freedom Flotilla, I bring you loving greetings and gratitude. I just got off a long meeting planning our next mission, and they all are so profoundly grateful to the fasters and in solidarity with the fasters. I have two questions. One is actually a gratitude statement. I have been a fast supporter or fast supporter on the one-on-one basis or on groups with fasters. Tarek will attribute to that or contribute to that for many, many years, where I was the contact person for the fasters. And I have to acknowledge all of you when you, Mike, mentioned that there was no conflict. That's just like absolutely stunning as the toxins move through the bodies. You guys must be doing something right or be graced by a higher power greater than myself. But my question was, did you have any, and apologies if you said it and I missed it, any particular congressional actions that you were seeking or any things that were measurable outcomes? I know you were focusing on the UN, so could you put that, maybe you said it and I just missed it, those pieces together between what the outcomes were that you hoped for and how far you got on those. If you could be a little bit more detailed on that. Thanks.
Well, let me kick this off, Joy, and jump in. We decided to do it in New York instead of Washington for a variety of reasons. How we decided on the UN, well, for one thing, obviously it's in New York, and that helped us decide the focus. I suppose if we were going to focus on Congress, we would have been in Washington. But and just for purely practical reasons, I did a fast several years ago with Kathy Kelly, 35 days in Washington, and it's just a crappy place to do a fast in because the setting down near the Capitol and that. I mean, there's no social interaction. There's, it's just kind of a desert in that regard. Whereas in New York, it's a dynamic and organic a place to be. So that was one, but that was just kind of a personal 2 cents that I threw in on the planning. But we know that the United Nations can't make anything happen, that the things that we want to have happen are basically up to our government. But I don't, Joy, if you have any better insight on how we happen to target the UN, share that with us. But I want to say just one other thing when it comes to outcomes. We as Tarek always reminds me, we can't do things based on hope for outcomes. We just aren't in a position to really affect much in that way, but we can help build the movement by our actions, and we can personally feel as though we're doing the best we can. But I don't, Joy, if you have any insight on how we picked UN.
Sorry, did you say why we picked the UN?
Yeah, as opposed to Congress. And that part of the planning kind of escapes my memory.
Well, there's 2 points of pressure here, really. It's the US mission, which Ambassador Shea does not like us, and that's reciprocated. We don't like her either. And the thing is, there's US representatives in the UN who come out of that building every day who are doing everything in their power to make sure that the UN remains useless as a body. And the other thing is we have been meeting with we've been able to talk with some of the missions. Personally, I went to the Denmark mission, and Denmark, and this is just a little bit to talk about the international community's complicity as well. Denmark is the home base of Maersk, which is the big shipping company that has been the target of the Palestinian youth movement for shipping weapons parts to Israel. And they're still doing that stuff. And when we went and talked to Maersk, or sorry, to Denmark about Maersk, because that's a very easy way that they could help end the genocide. At the end of the day, what's propping up this genocide? It's money, it's weapons shipments, it's companies. And so Denmark has essentially a very easy slam dunk. They could kick Maersk off of their country, they could do this, that, or the other thing. And they were very reluctant, they were very hesitant. And they kept making excuses about like EU tax laws, and stupid things like that. One thing in the comments she said was like, well, they haven't technically broken any like Denmark laws. And I was like, what? Um, so look, I mean, yes, the UN is trying to do things, sure, but every single day they deliberate about passing resolutions that don't require any countries to actually take any action. Palestinians actively die every single day. The Uniting for Peace vote happened freaking I don't know how many days ago, but in theory, that should have stopped it immediately. But at the end of the day, that resolution had nothing in it that required countries to do anything. And so, really, the messaging is, yeah, the US is co-funding, co-leading this genocide, but the world is just watching. And we're being forced as citizens of the world to go and break the siege ourselves. Our citizens should not be sailing to Gaza because that's not our responsibility. It's not our responsibility to stop genocides. We should not be marching to Gaza, putting our own bodies in danger because our governments refuse to do nothing. And so, I mean, I was asking the same questions when we first set up this meeting, but seeing more and more kind of understanding how little the UN is doing as a piece. And frankly, they failed year after year, decade after decade, since their founding to stop effectively and in time human atrocities happening. And so this one really begs the question of how useless, how useful is the UN when it acts as the US's lapdog. So those are some of the things that really make being outside of the UN a choice that makes sense, because at the end of the day, they are watching what's going on, clutching their pearls, and that's about it. So that's perhaps a long answer to the question of why we're outside the UN. The US mission is very,
And
very easy, because we are using the UN as a shield for this atrocity. And we have
and
not forgotten that at all.
and I should thank you, Joy. And I should point out, Anthony Donovan put in the chat that people in the peace movement in New York have been advocating for a Uniting for Peace vote, and that they've also had a vigil for Palestine at the U.S. mission on a weekly basis for the last 2 years. So they, really gave a high recommendation for what venue to pick for this when we were going.
Yeah, just a quick feedback that I agree with Tarek. You can't go into something like this with, quote, outcome driven. But typically on a fast, there'll be something um, like, if this happens, then we'll stop. But it sounds like you had a date line so that no matter what happened, you would stop on this date. Is that accurate? Because quite often there's okay, if the US withdraws from Nicaragua, we're going to pull out, or if etc. So it's that kind of goal that I was wondering if that, but it sounds like it's a date oriented or number of days oriented. Is that accurate?
Well, yeah, sort of. And I can, just to refresh my memory on that point. And I remember the discussions that we had. And, you can have an open-ended fast, which we were not interested in doing after we discussed it. So the question was, well, then how long do we want to do this for? And the 40 days seemed to have some significance in a number of ways. So that's why we picked that. There. I guess that's the best way to answer that.
Yeah, our two demands were the no weapons and resumption of humanitarian aid. Um, the idea of adding in that deadline, and that's what we call it. It's not like the end of the fast or anything. It's like a deadline because we're not gonna kill ourselves over this. But the idea is that, look, we're asking nicely right now. We're fasting. We're meeting with you. We're like asking you to meet these demands. And hey, if it's not met by this deadline, we're going to continue escalating and we're going to ask a little bit less nicely. That's how a lot of people have been looking at that, and me particularly. I wouldn't have joined the fast if there was no promise to continue escalating and to continue taking further action to stop this, because I don't want them to get used to activists just starving themselves and dropping over dead, right? There has to be some follow-up action.
Thank you both. Jim, you had a question?
Hello, everybody. I just Jim Brazel from Chapter 34 in Connecticut. Thanks to everyone for what you're doing, especially Joy, who came all the way up from Florida. We will try to be there Friday with about 5 veterans who are starting from Rhode Island, picking up a few more in Connecticut. We'll try to see you early Friday morning.
Right?
Mike, I have more of a comment. Um, I've talked to Joy on the phone, I think once. We started texting, and I hooked her up with a Stanley Heller who does the Struggle News. He's a videographer and did a great interview on Joy. And Joy, you really make it easier to get involved in this with all your dedication. So thank you for that. Um, and what I've been trying to do, there's a New York-based YouTube channel, Status Coup, now in New York City. He's very successful, Jordan Cheriton. I finally got him to email me. I finally got his assistant's phone number and his cameraman's phone number. Well, not only for this event, the fast that's going on, but maybe in the future. I think a relationship should be made between 34, which is right in New York City, and Jordan Cheriton and Status Coup. Not that he's going to be to everything that you do, especially with what's going on now. If you check out his channel, he's on the street with, or not him specifically. He does more interviews in the studio now since he just has a small child recently. But they're out on the streets doing 2-3 hours of footage. And I can just see where if he knew there was a Veterans for Peace member around, a 3 or 4 minute interview would be very nice to see on the internet. You guys were over at Grand Central Station. I think I got the email from Bob, so I knew about it. But I went online. I could not find anybody that recorded that. There may have been one studio that did a minute. Maybe not. I can't even remember. But I know if we had this planned out with a fella like Jordan, he would send down his cameraman. And I think that would be to an advantage. Now, Joy mentioned something on the 30th that's going on. So if someone could be the communications person with Status Quo, I think that would be something they would go down and film for a half hour or an hour. I
Jim,
did send,
Thank
yeah,
you.
and I did
Jim.
send it, and I did send it to Mike, all this information. So
Jim,
thank you.
and Jim, the two folks that you sent me both received the news releases, and we have not heard a word from either of them.
Okay, well, we're doing the best we can. I just want to make sure that's
Yeah,
done.
yeah. No, I
And
took your suggestion. I took your suggestion and made sure they got the releases.
and that's her cell number. Ashley has called me back, so don't be afraid to tell her who you are. Might be
Thank
a little
you.
more
That's a
fixed.
really good idea. And I'm sure we'll follow up for the
All right,
30th.
thank you,
Thank
guys.
you. Thank you. Tarek, go ahead.
Hi, and Mike and Joy, thanks so much for this presentation, and not only that, but for all you've been doing and that the others have been doing. I know it's not easy to do this fast in New York City, and you've been doing a lot. You've been going around the city. Not only I know you're not only staying at the U.S. mission, but you've been going around and making yourselves visible. Fifth Avenue, you were there. It was great. So, but I have a question. Are you calling for a press conference on the 30th? And would that be at the Isaiah Wall if you did, or would it be, or have you decided that yet? Or do you want to not want to say?
Joy?
The press conference is going to be a press conference. So we're not putting too much emphasis on the conference itself because what we really want to say will happen during the action. But we'll give everybody an update on like some of the more mundane things maybe that have happened, like Mike's ass getting sent to the hospital or something. And we'll chat a little bit about some of the good things that have happened during the fast. But yeah, the point is really going to be driven home during the action. So, yeah, and we're gonna try a couple during the press conference. For instance, like a call and repeat type speech because those are very effective. But so audience participation is required.
Again, Joy, you're asking for people to join the 30th.
Yes,
Where?
the U.S. mission. I just don't think we're gonna mess with the Isaiah Wall. It's gonna be a short press conference, and yeah, come with perishables or non-perishables, please.
9:30 in the morning. Did somebody want to say something? Yeah, Sherry, go ahead.
Just quick question. I get up at 3:30 so that 9:30 doesn't intimidate me. Is it going to be a Zoomable or able to be audience participation or live
We're gonna
stream?
live stream it.
On
Not quite a
what platforms?
Sorry?
Can you tell us what platforms or get back to us for the live
Yeah.
stream?
Yeah, it depends on how many people we have there videoing. Instagram and TikTok for sure.
And we would like to have you all in person. Joy and Mike, anything else you want to add?
Sherry, why don't you fly in? You could stay with us.
I got a boat to launch
Okay, bye.
at some point very soon and other things. But thank you.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for the invitation to your chapter meeting, and thank you to Ellen Davidson for temporarily moving out of her apartment on East 7th Street so 4 or 5 or 6 fasters can crash there. And to everybody that's supported this, helping get the T-shirts done, just a whole variety of things. And so that's it from me.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any other questions? My goodness, everybody's quiet tonight. Anything else you'd like to add, Joy? Okay. We'll go on with the rest of the meeting, and thank you both very much for the work that you're doing and the attention you're drawing more and more every day to the massacre and the genocide in Gaza and now in Iran. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks
Good
all.
night. Right.
Hope to see you on the 30th.
Yes. Okay. I don't think we need to go through the past of what's been going on, but Bob, what is coming up? Oh, the convention. Okay, folks. The convention is July 24th through the 27th. It is in person. It is the first in-person Veterans for Peace convention we've had in 6 years. It's going to be at the University of Nevada in Las Vegas. The early bird registration and the saving $50 passed on Monday. But please sign up for this convention. Yes, it will also be available on Zoom, but I think one of the most important things is the camaraderie that we develop when we get together. And it's so important for us to see each other, discuss. And the convention this year is planned so that we have the usual programming, but we will have one specific session at a time. And you can look at the program if you go to Veterans for Peace and click on the convention slider. You'll see the program for all days of the convention. We'll start with the usual welcoming on Thursday. On Friday morning, there will be an action, and then the welcome will start at 10 o'clock. And you can see the issues that we have clearly identified this year that we think are a priority for Veterans for Peace to deal with. There are, I believe, 8 or 9 sessions. And as I said, there's one at a time. The format of the sessions will be a panel discussion, and you can see the individuals on each one of the panels. And then after 45 minutes of the panel presentation, there will be time for the audience participation. And our goal is to have members who are at that session help design moving forward following the convention. So each one of the sessions will have that time allotment for it. There is the session on the VA and the issues that we are facing today. There's a session on labor and veterans. There's a number of other sessions about the border, what's going on at the border with a panel of experts and a discussion following their presentation. The plenary that will take place on Sunday afternoon will be coming together of all of those, and I hope it's all of you who are on this call, to come together and have a discussion and a plan and a priority for how the chapters, the national organization, the working groups, and the national projects will move forward the following 6 months. Part of the issue that I think we all see is that we're scrambling to respond to the issues of this administration as they come up. And what we need to do is to take our projects and figure out how can we as veterans have the biggest impact moving forward. I think you all are aware of the group of veterans that took over the mall, the Capitol Mall, on Friday prior to that march. I don't even know what to call it at this point, but prior to the march the problems in Washington, there was a significant number of veterans who gathered on the steps of the Capitol who got nationwide coverage for being veterans and for being there. And just in case anybody was curious about who the man in the wheelchair was, who was arrested by the cops, it was John Spitzberg, a longtime member of Veterans for Peace. We know that there were many, many actions throughout the country in different cities by the chapters. So thank you all. It was extraordinary. We need to keep that energy and that movement going. And we need you all to be there at the convention to help us move forward. We'll have the usual opening and Friday evening speakers. Saturday evening is event. It's not, as most of you know it, a banquet, because it's not a banquet. It will be an event. It will have our usual programming. At this point, Mike Preisner and Anne are the two major speakers. We think we may have another major speaker, and we'll get that information out to you when we know for sure. But again, we need to get together, and we need to organize together. So any questions about the convention? Again, please register. And I can quickly give you an update on Agent Orange. We have legislation in the House of Representatives that was introduced by Rashida Tlaib before April 30th, which, as we all know, was the 50th anniversary, the end of the war in Vietnam. So we have our legislation again that is geared towards taking care of both the children of American veterans and the Vietnamese and cleaning up the land in Vietnam. So we're moving forward with that. Anything else on New York City projects? Tom, anything on Move the Money?
There's not too much concrete to say. I think most of the New Yorkers on the call are aware that we were ghosted this year by our prime sponsor, and with probable pressure from the current speaker of the city council, who is now running for mayor, who will therefore not get my vote. We have a new offer by Justin Brannon, who's running for comptroller, to pursue the resolution. An offer that was made to me when he came up to me at last weekend at a rally that he is having with labor people. And I reminded him of where things stood, or don't stand, better stated. And he claims he wants to pursue it. So, and said, get with me 10 days from now, meaning right after the election. So, it would be very nice to actually have somebody, from, besides myself, from Veterans for Peace, if we actually sit down with him, which I think we need to do, to talk about what's real over the next 6 months, because 6 months is a very short time frame to try to get something passed at the city council. So that's all I have to say at the moment. Well, I will say one last thing. It was nice to hear yesterday. I hope everybody is aware of what happened. Well, again, the out-of-towners might not have heard this. Brad Lander, who's running for mayor, was this reported earlier? Because I missed the beginning of the meeting. I'm sorry about that.
Go ahead.
Brad Lander was arrested in the course of trying to accompany an immigrant who was there for his check-in or hearing at 26 Federal Plaza, downtown Manhattan, and was arrested when the some of them masked ICE agents were set about arresting the immigrant, and Brad tried to hang on to the immigrant, and they arrested and pushed Brad to the floor. And anyway, that was a big, the word went out pretty fast. Hundreds of people got turned up at Foley Square within an hour of his arrest. and he was released about 4 hours later, was able to speak to those who were in attendance, which was just about everybody who came. And he urged us to to put a special emphasis on working, to support immigrants. And I think it's something that really our chapter here in New York ought to think about, and maybe the whole organization nationally. I don't know exactly what's been thought about on this level, but it's pretty scary stuff when public officials are getting arrested for trying to help immigrants. And there are at least 4 cases of that now. The senator from California, our comptroller here in New York, the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, and a House of Representatives rep from, I think, the Newark area, also, all within the last month, and probably more to come. We are on the road to fascism, no question about it, if we don't turn this around. The war is not only abroad, it is very much at home.
And actually, Tom, thank you for asking. At the convention, we will be talking about ICE and the border and what Veterans for Peace chapters can do. Mike Tork is right in Tucson now, has been to the border a number of times to work with people and help us figure out what, in fact, Veterans for Peace will be doing and what information we will be able to hand to the troops. I mean, I'm just looking around at all of us who are here. Those of us who are active in the 60s and 70s know about disobeying illegal orders and know about what happens with the troops. So we need, I think, to be very careful. We're working with attorneys. I'm sorry that Mike Ferner isn't still on this call. He's done a lot of work with the Military Law Task Force about figuring out what information members can use when they talk with active duty military, what resources there are, and talking about the genocide in Gaza. So Veterans for Peace is actively looking at those issues, and we'll be talking about them at the convention. When I mentioned that it's not just sessions, it's also figuring out what are we going to do going forward, who is going to be interested in going to the border and working and handing out materials to the troops who are at the border. And you're right, there are actions right now in New York City that that some of us have been involved with, and will continue to get information out. I'm sorry, did somebody have their hand raised?
I did.
Oh, thank you, Todd. And then Alice.
Just got a quick question, and it's more out of frustration, but I've been arguing against some of my fellow peace activists now for 10 years that our president is not a peace president. And yet I'm still hearing from a few people that he's a peace president. I'm not going to mention any names, but a couple prominent. But going to all these other things going on, the immigration issue and everything else, how do you convey to these people that they're morally culpable for the entire program that's being done, when they stand up and say, yeah, he's a peace president, because it legitimizes everything else he's doing. This is what was done in Germany in the 1920s and 1930s, but began in the 20s. And so I get pretty frustrated when I'm encountering people. I used to be the veteran intelligence professional for Sanity. I had to resign because there's so much support in that organization for our president. And it's gotten to be really frustrating when I still hear some of them talking about the peace president when he's standing there side by side, arms shoulder to shoulder with Netanyahu.
I'm looking at people's faces on this call. I think that we all agree with you. There's no question about what we're dealing with. We have national projects that, in fact, counter any kind of notion about a peace president. We haven't had a peace president, I think, in any of our memories. So we have a lot of work to do moving forward. We in Veterans for Peace have taken a number of stands and put out statements in terms of the administration being counter what the administration is saying. So I would hope that's not in Veterans for Peace. I could be wrong, but
unfortunately, a couple of them.
We are an organization for peace. It is our statement of purpose. We have had many, many discussions, certainly given what's been going on in the world for the last 10, 15, 20 years, that this is what we talk about. We are against arming any of the states or any of the countries. We're a peace organization. And on that note, I look at Alice because I saw her hand raised. I want to recognize her. We can't hear you, Alice.
I want to ask a very ignorant question because I'm not a veteran and I'm new to this group, and working with you. But do we have in our networks people that can talk to the generals that are still running the army? Because they've got to be thinking that we shouldn't be bombing Iran or, is there anybody that we talk to at that level, or we're like persona? Is there anybody left in the actual army that has a brain and some conscience? I don't know. I'm asking.
It's a wonderful question, and I would love to ask Joy, and what her most current experience has been. We've been talking, and I think she's had some support from other folks at her level in the military. But could I just ask you all who is going to speak next, and I'll be right back and I'll ask Joy to get on. Okay. Who wanted to say something after Alice? Somebody.
Fine, I can say
go
something.
ahead. Okay, go ahead. I'm going to get Joy.
Who's going to talk?
You.
Me? Oh yeah. Okay. So as you may know, I am the editor-in-chief of Peace and Planet News. And we're coming out with another issue probably in a couple of weeks. And some of you are good writers. Alice, Nick, Todd. But I would like a couple of good articles submitted. Has to be under 1,600 words. And you picked the subject. There's so many vital subjects today, that are so important. And I will say that we do not consider Donald Trump a peace president or anything.
I won't
We had
mention
a little
any
hope he
names.
was going to make a deal with Putin, not because but we had a little hope, right?
Hey,
That was
this
bullshit.
guy is not about peace, period. And that should be abundantly clear to everybody.
It
Now,
should be.
there were some people that held out some kind of hope that for some reason he would do that because he wants to get the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, he was saying that. He was saying.
We'll burn the paper, Tarek, if his name is mentioned.
His name will be mentioned, but not in a good way. So anyway, if any of you would like to write something, you have my emails, I think. Todd, you have my email. Nick, you have my email. Alice, Alice, write something. You're such a good writer.
I just wrote something today for somebody.
Just send it to me.
Okay, I'm just going to take over for a minute. I asked Joy to come back to talk a little bit about her current experience or her experience with the current military, just for a short time.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't talk with a lot of military folks, but I was able to get a lot of them to agree with me that what was happening in Gaza was terrible. I think the problem there is that people didn't really feel culpable, being in the military and being so far from it. The big thing right now that I know is bothering, and I was still in the military when Trump started his takeover and started axing DEI and everything like that. Most people kind of just rolled over and said, this is how it is now. I know for a fact my husband's still active duty, so this is how I know, but there's a few folks, at least that my husband's connected to, that are absolutely against everything that's going on with immigration, particularly the usage of the US military. which, by the way, the Marines have been on the ground, and that has caused less of a
Yeah.
ruckus than I thought it
In
would.
LA.
But like on the round of arresting people. And I am surprised that we are not getting more footage of that. So I guess maybe the California VFP chapter should be hitting the streets. I know I would if I was out there. But I digress. I think if we do end up, and God forbid, if we do end up going to war in Iran, we're going to see a very similar situation to what we saw in, the other wars. But the thing is, they're going to be pushed into a war in the Middle East, and most Americans know that it's all BS at this point. And a lot of people joined for finance. I think the amount of people who are joining for financial reasons has overtaken people who join for patriotism just based off of the vibes I'm getting. I was a minority when I was talking about joining because I cared about the troops in the country or whatever. Most people join for school. So I think that if we do go into a hot war and we need to be ready and mobilized to seize on that feeling of discontent and make sure that these people know that there's options to get out, and that if they decide to do something a little spicier, we have lawyers ready to help them. No questions asked.
But my question was something else, Joy. I don't know if there's this thing with Iran is so awful just thinking about it right now. Are there any people in the military at the top level, that are running the military that we can talk to that would rebel against the president? I mean, can we have a coup d'etat where the military sits down and says we're not going to go to war? Is that possible? Do we have any kind of relationship there? That's just it's
I
like
don't
a
think
stupid
so.
question because I don't know anything.
That's not the way the military is set up. I don't think that it would ever happen.
Not
But
a
what we could
possibility.
probably do is a bunch of lower level enlisted refusing to go out in waves, and that's just as effective as a coup.
We had that
Probably
in
more effective.
Vietnam. We had that in Vietnam.
Having my hand up, I'll butt in. But anyway, Joy, maybe you could, being from the Air Force and Georgia Tech, I'm assuming you're some sort of a technical specialist as an officer. Maybe you could explain to people, or maybe you could write something that, they learned from the Vietnam War that they don't want the draft. They don't want a mass army who's going to get pissed off. And so war has gotten more and more sophisticated to where today you don't need to put a single boot on the ground to massacre millions of people. And, our government is not going to put boots on the ground in Iran. They don't need to, just like Israel doesn't need to. They can kill how many Iranians without putting a single soldier, other than special forces on the ground to direct the drones that they're aiming at executing people. Anyway, could you say anything about that? I put a thing in the comment in the chat box that the generals we have now are all handpicked just since January by the Heritage Foundation, the administration, and Pete Hegseth. And nobody should look to them for any kind of moral courage whatsoever. But going to Tom's comment before, they're fascists. We need to confront that fact. We have a fascist governing system now.
And Phil said we had just dismissed a general officer at the Pentagon for being against the Iran attack.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen to any opposition. They'll be ushered out the door as quickly as possible.
I don't think there's any disagreement with anybody at this meeting, Todd, in terms of what you're saying. I think what I hear is enormous frustration about who to contact and how can we deal with it. And what I heard Joy say is right. It is the ongoing organizing that really needs to be done with the active duty military. And that's kind of what we saw in terms of the GI movement during the Vietnam era.
Susan, why don't you mention that website that people could go to? It's a tremendous resource and it's really easy. Voicesofconscience.com com. What, no, what is it? You know, the website. Do I have to look it up? That's about exactly that. So that's where all the information is about what happened during the Vietnam War and the resistance. What's
Right.
the name?
It's Bill Short, who did a book on a matter of conscience about 22 years ago. He interviewed former military people who were active in fighting against the war in Southeast Asia. And from that book, he and Willa Seidenberg have put together a series of podcasts now that are called A Matter of Conscience. We've been trying to get information out to everybody about it. And I'm thinking, Bob, we could include that in our next email that goes out. I'll send that to you. It's incredibly well done. It's called A Matter of Conscience again, and it's the live interviews that were done 20 some odd years ago on individuals and talks about the individual resistance within the military. And that's Bill Short and Willa Seidenberg. And Tarek is going to publish information about that website in the next issue of Peace and Planet News.
Right.
And we'll send out the notice and how you can access the podcast. There,
Susan, let me say something. It's a matter of conscience.com. And if you go to it, that's what it is. A matter of conscience.com. You go to it, you'll see these podcasts. And I listened to that's what I did yesterday. I listened to every one of them. It was just absolutely fascinating, non-boring. So you'll see up at the top, it says home, about, a matter of conscience, and then podcast. And the whole thing is fantastic. So you will be fascinated.
So it's not just the individual interviews that they've done this time. It's the individual interviews along with commentary from the Times and music from the Times. So
really good.
It is interesting. Thank you, Tarek. Yes, Tom, go ahead.
Well, sort of while we're on that subject of, resistance inside the military, a terrific film that came out, 15 or more years ago, Sir, No Sir.
Yes.
Aren't you in it, Susan?
Yeah.
Briefly. That's an amazing film. If anybody has not seen it, I would recommend it. I don't know how to find it. I don't know if it's on YouTube or what these days.
It's available on YouTube. David Zeiger is the guy that produced it, and it does show interviews with active duty folks who did remarkable things during the conflict in Southeast Asia. So if you have a chance to see it, actually that documentary is based on Bill Short's book, A Matter of Conscience. Right. It's really cool. Alice, question.
Yeah, well then, is that what we should be doing? Like, should we be trying to get more of those voices out now before we destroy ourselves and Iran and, whatever else is, like, try to up the ante somehow within our network, since we have these connections to amplify them, like Tarek is going to do in his newspaper. And whatever happened to John Kerry? Did he just wimp out? He's a big name.
Hold out.
People heard of him. I don't know what he's doing these days.
Kerry is part of the system, Alice.
I figured. I remember he was a hero at one point.
Yeah, he was, because he went before.
Maybe he wants to be it again,
So what I'm going to do is just, I'd like us to hear about an ongoing project that I think is very effective, and we don't always hear from Nick, and Ban Killer Drones. And I just think we need to hear the actions and the group, Nick, in terms of what you all are doing and what bases you've been to recently.
In April, Toby Blome led a protest that was very effective at Holloman Air Force Base in Alamogordo, New Mexico, and there were Veterans for Peace people from Albuquerque who came down and participated in that. It was a small group of people, but the success of it was really based on Toby being willing to get arrested. And what happened was, and the protest ran over a week's time. Every morning from 6:30 to 8:30, we went out on the highway with signs leading to the entrance of Holloman Air Force Base, which is the home of the largest drone operator training center in the country. They turn out about 600 drone operators a year. In the afternoon, we went out from 3:30 to 5:30 with signs for the base personnel who were going home to Alamogordo. Probably 200 or 300 cars or more would pass us, going and coming. But in the middle of the week, we did go to a smaller gate into the base. Toby stood in the driveway going in, and on either side of her, there were 4 of us, 2 on each side holding a banner so that we effectively blocked the base entrance. Cars backed up, and it was definitely noted, and particularly on the internet. At one point, she lay down in front of one of the car that had stopped so that they couldn't go forward, and there were people standing behind it. So for about 45 minutes, that created this sensation there at the base. They did give her some kind of charges. I don't think that they're going to pursue anything. But after the action was over, 2 of us were standing there holding a banner, and a car stopped next to us, and the driver rolled down his window and shouted out that he wanted us to know that not everybody on the base was supporting what was going on in Gaza. And it was very, very interesting that we did get a few people, I say a very few, but there were those people who would, when we were on the highway, toot or flash their lights at us in approval for what we were doing. And in the town of Alamogordo, which is really a military town, over the county courthouse, they have a mural showing rockets, missiles, and airplanes. But we found people in the town who were supportive of what we were doing this time, as we did before. But what I learned at that protest was, even though we like to have hundreds of people turn out, you can really make an impression with 12 people. And that's very important to realize right now, because what I think Joy was pointing out, which is very important, is that we have to take action, and I'll be happy to write articles, but I've been trying to be as much in the street as I can. And of course, for ban killer drones and our work at the UN, that's really suffered, because I've been basically feeling most valuable doing whatever I could out in the street. As far as the anti-drone warfare work is concerned, right now I'm working on a letter to the Mexican president, which I hope will be delivered. But the burden of the letter really is to try to point out the horrible shortcomings and misdirection that has happened because of drone warfare, and this idea that you can slaughter people without consequences. It's a very dangerous and pernicious concept. We all wish we could do things without consequences. There are certain things that we know are really wrong, but if we could get away with it, maybe we'd do it. And so I'm going to speak to that, and really that drone warfare is fundamentally a military failure, and talk about that. But so those are things I would have to offer. I will say that we, this last Saturday, held a very successful concert from 2 in the afternoon to 5:30. It's kind of like some people remember Ed Sullivan, where he had a really big shoe. Well, we had one, and we had a lot of variety, and people really liked it. It was uplifting of spirits in a time that is, and not in a cheesy way, but a way where people could see the good in each other, and how we can, be with each other. And we raised, I think it's coming now more than $5,500 for a school in Gaza, where they have 350 students, and there's 200 more who want to go to the school. So with money we've raised and other people are contributing, they're going to be able to rent more space and go about that. And I think everybody felt really, really so good to be able to do something that had a direct personal connection. The students knew we were going to hold the concert, and they were very excited about that. They made up a special booklet for the concert, and we have a little Veterans for Peace chapter out here, and so they were very supportive of this concert as well. So those are my offerings for the evening, and thank you for asking, Susan.
Thank you, Nick. I think it's really important to hear about these successes, and we know that we have a long way to go, but so important to understand that we're not each alone and that we're working together and trying to make this kind of change. And we need to keep doing it. So anything else for this evening? Bob, did I forget something on the agenda? It's been a really good discussion, folks. Anything? Yes, Tom, go ahead.
At the risk of embarrassing Georgia, though I doubt it, we're also part of a group where she drafted a letter in opposition to all the militarism and the warmongering going on. And it seems to me it's something that the idea is to get it into local community papers, everything from the little penny, what do you call them, penny savers, to the smaller papers we have around New York. The big ones won't run it, but although the Daily News might. I wonder if Georgia would say something about that.
Thank you, Tom. Georgia.
Actually, it's a short letter to the editor, which I hope would get published. But so far it hasn't been published yet that I know of. But it's about the misuse of anti-Semitism.
Oh, right. Sorry about misconstruing.
Yeah, to cover themselves. How anti-Semitism has changed its meaning, and it's been adopted by all the right wing, and they
By
use
Nazis.
What?
By Nazis.
By Nazis, she's saying.
I'm Jewish. The ones that are saying you're anti-Semitic because you're against the Holocaust in Gaza
Yeah,
are acting like Nazis.
Oh, that's right. They are acting like Nazis. And that's what virtually what I say is that they using anti-Semitism to cover up other things that they're doing. And it's not
they're using it.
Yeah, it's just a way they have of accusing people. And it just doesn't make sense. How anti-Semitism is being used. So I try to point that out best as I can when I talk.
Right.
Anyway.
Thank you, Georgia.
Yeah.
I'm going to add to that, if it's okay, Susan, for a minute. They're using this. I mean, first of all, the New York Times is heavily guilty of this, as are all the corporate media. And they're doing it purposely. They know what they're doing. They're not naive. In my city council district, my council person, who happens to be from Bangladesh and happens to have headed up a committee against hate in the city council, was skewered and is being skewered by APAC types running a sort of a stealth candidate who comes out of all places, the Brennan Center, which usually has a liberal reputation, but it's liberal in the wrong sense. Anyway, she's being accused of anti-Semitism. It's insanity. It's insanity. It's very misdirective, and they have a real chance of kicking out a perfectly good city council member on this basis. I'm sure she's by far not the only case. But
I've been accused.
And this goes back to the notion that all politics is local, folks. You got to pay attention to what's going on locally and speak up. So that's why I wanted her letter to be presented here, because it's something that any of us could do, and all of us probably should be doing, including me.
I want to add that I've been accused of being a self-hating Jew.
Yeah.
In other words, they can't call me an anti-Semite because I'm a Semite. So I'm a self-hated. They've made a whole language for this to make
I don't even understand that term.
There is actually an organization that posts lists of very active Jews, and they call them self-hating
Jews. Like Medina Benjamin.
Right. I don't know how active they are now, and I don't remember the organization, but yeah, it's kind of, it is extraordinary. And just to mention, I think all of you who are watching what's going on in New York, we are working closely with Jewish Voice for Peace.
They're wonderful.
It have a liberation Seder outside of the ICE headquarters, which was pretty incredible and terrific. So really important to be able to join with organizations like them and have our voice heard. And I mean, I think one of the things we certainly have learned from years of experience is we really do need to come together and to work together. We kind of saw that on Saturday, even though there was a lot of frustration about different positions. Right, there is. But we got to come together if we're going to be able to have an impact on what's going on in Washington. We need to survive this.
See a lot of hands up there. I think Phil's had his hand up for quite a while.
Want to say?
Hello.
Welcome to New York, Phil.
Thanks. It's good to be virtually back. No, I was just in relation to the earlier conversation. I had a group of us were leafleting in Sproul Plaza at UC Berkeley just as the fast was kicking off. We would leaflets saying that it was graduation, so it was mostly parents walking by. And they the leaflets were, contact the UC president and tell them to stop the genocide, to pull money from investing in Israel to stop the genocide. And a woman walked by, a couple of women together walked by, and one of them just looked at me and goes, "Release the hostages." And I don't know, I kind of lost my temper a little bit, and I said, "Sure, if you stop the effing murders." And then she kept walking. Well, she called the cops on me. they came and said that I had threatened to kill her.
Wow.
The police took all my ID and they basically I think they did a whole police report on me. So I guess I'm on the terrorism list now.
Don't leave the
Terrible.
country.
But it did have an impact, because she had to go get a cop and spend a half an hour out of her day to come back after me.
Oh, God.
Were you detained?
No, 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 and the cop didn't tell me I had to leave either. So we
They
just
took your ID and all that information?
yep.
Mhm.
Aren't you glad you live in New York? Well, after
No,
you go in, right,
not anymore.
Gaza.
Yeah, unfortunately, my New York driver's license expired, and and I've got a California one now. So
It's all right. He's coming after New York. He said he's going to do all the blue states.
yeah,
Well, right. So any
Okay.
else, folks, for
I just wanted to quickly add, if I could share, Susan,
Sure,
everybody
go
knows this, of course, but as we all know, we're being ruled now by executive orders. And earlier this year, we had 2 executive orders issued. One, putting this definition of anti-Semitism into the law, basically, of the
Right.
executive order. And the other one was criminalizing support for the ICC. The definition, in fact, came about during the first administration between 2017 and 2020, where it put into place this definition of anti-Semitism. So if anybody wants to complain about it, let's keep in mind where it came from as far as U.S. law.
Thank you,
If
Tanya.
anybody knows of any local newspapers that I can send this to, please, I just put my email in the chat. Write to me and tell me the names of those.
Where are you, George? Are you in New York?
I'm in New York.
Yeah. So you know all the local AM today, those things. Like
Oh, I think the question is there anybody on this call, right? Contact Georgia and use her letter. That's what she's offering. So, Georgia and Bob, should we send the letter around?
put
And
it on me, put it on the email
how
list.
about making it easy? Georgia, would you make sure Bob?
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay,
I'll find it.
terrific.
Yeah.
So all of the chapters.
Thank you.
A copy of.
Thanks, everybody. I hope you do that.
Oh, thank you. It's something we can start with. And then, Tom, I heard you about the meeting. If the meeting occurs sometime before the end of July, please let us know. I agree, and I promise Veterans for Peace will be a more active part and move the money.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else tonight? Bob, yes.
Oops, I have to unmute. Just 2 things. Same time, of course. On Saturday, same time as your national board meeting is 2 p.m. is Gabe Falsetta's memorial at the CP on 235 West 23rd Street.
Whose memorial?
Gabe Falsetta, he was a member of our chapter. Yeah.
A wonderful member of our chapter.
Yeah.
A fine journalist too.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
We'll be
anything else for tonight?
Okay.
Just the fact that you all are awesome and we will sail again.
Keep on sailing.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Right.
Thank you.
Our June meeting, we have, I don't know if we're going to be able to have a meeting in July because the convention is kind of all absorbing.
Sorry.
If that's okay.
Right.
It's okay.
So we will meet again, I guess, in August this year. But again,
Thank you, Rachel.
yes,
Thank you for doing the
thank you. And
technology.
why are you Ellen Davidson tonight? I'd like to know. You don't look like
Not Ellen
Ellen.
Davidson.
And where's the puppy?
Puppy is on the couch in the living room.
And where is Ellen?
Ellen is at a rehearsal that she could not miss.
Oh, music here. Great.
She's doing the Foray Requiem.
Wow.
And she loves that piece. And they're doing it next weekend.
So Rachel took over the tech for Ellen.
Rachel took over the tech. Rachel took over the tech.
Yes, thank you. And thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you, Susan.
Good night, friends. Hasta pronto.
Good night.
Pray for peace.
Thank you.
Right.